do a video on real world chaining of my semi-truck. So the first thing when you pull up to your chain up area is when you pull up and leave some space between the trucks, and then also back up slightly because the heat from your tires will melt the snow underneath and create some ice. So if you back up a little bit, it'll create some flat spot for you to start rolling again when you move forward. And then when you pull out all your gear, I didn't do it here, but to make sure you get your wrench on the driver's side, because when you start needing the wrench, you start from the driver's side. I also have some snow socks, which I use for the trailer. I personally don't trust them enough to put on the regular drive tires, but I've kept them for the trailer at least. And kind of show you how easy they are compared to chains if you want to try them. But also what you need to do if you're going to do a combination like this, because the issue is with the snow socks, you have to back up enough to where you could put the whole tire on, or a whole snow sock on. So what you want to make sure with the snow socks is definitely make sure they're not inside out. So in particular with these, the label on the orange straps are facing outwards, and the black material actually overlaps and covers the outer edges of the orange straps. These are easy socks. They're from the Love's truck stock. The other brand that most people use seems to be the Auto Sock. I have no experience with them, but they seem to be a little bit better quality. When you're putting them on, you just want to make sure you get as much as you possibly can get on. Make sure they're on the other side too, and as you can see, just about 75% of the tire you can get on. So when you pull out the chains, what you want to do is, there's a cam side, and then there's the other side that doesn't have the cams. They're the oval kind of shaped parts. So you want to get, there's hooks on the outside edges where the tread part of the chain is. You want those hooks facing towards you, and then the cams will be dangling down. And then you just overlay them over. And make sure the chains don't have any kinks and the hooks are all unhooked or freed from the chain. And you want to make sure that everything is untangled as much as possible. And try to kind of tuck them underneath the tire, because you're going to be backing up over them. And you want to make sure everything's on the outside of the tire, because when you back up, you don't want those chains to be stuck underneath, or else you're going to have to move the truck again to free them up, and that just costs extra time. Make sure the cams are all on the unlocked side. To have as much slack as much as possible. And you can see here I have two different types of chains. I got these smaller chains that I just put on, and these are bigger, heavier chains. The smaller chains are for actually one tire size down, so they're hard to put on when they're brand new, but once you get them on and drive on them a little bit, they'll stretch out and they're easier to put on. They're just the same as putting on regular chains, but also a little bit lighter weight. And then these chains, they're heavier, but they're also a lot easier to put on initially and everything. But they're heavier and kind of sloppier on the fitment. I decided to put 4 chains on, which turned out to be a really good idea. There's a bunch of cars stuck up on the pass that I'm on. I decided to cut out the other side to cut some time out. So when you get in, because I have the snow socks on, you want to back up to the tires, to the end of the chains are about the 2 o'clock position. Basically as far as back as you can before they start to fall off. If you don't have snow socks, you could get away with like the 3 o'clock position or a little bit lower, so you don't have to risk the chains falling off. So once you're backed up, you want to hook the inside part of the tire first and just make sure the hooks are facing outwards. Then you get the outside hook on. As far as gear, you just make sure you get a waterproof jacket, waterproof gloves. The jacket, really you don't need that heavy of a jacket. It's more about waterproofing because you're going to be doing a lot of activity, so you'll be pretty warm already. There's also kind of like food gloves, Subway gloves that you can put on over regular gloves, so they're waterproof for this. Now I have these spider bungees, which they're much easier to put on, and they secure the chain super well. So these are the cams that I was talking about earlier. Once you're all hooked up, to tighten these cams. Some chains have 3, others have 4. There's me demonstrating the issue with these wrenches. Make sure you don't drop them in the snow, or else they could be lost forever or difficult to find again. And going on with this theme, make sure the hooks are facing out when you attach these spider bungees. When I attach these spider bungees, I make sure not to put the hooks around the chains where the cams are located. They sometimes undo the cams while you're driving. And also to make sure to get one of the hooks over where the chains attach to each other, around one of those hooks to keep it secure. I Forgot to mention earlier with these bigger, sloppier chains to hook the outer edge as tight as possible. So you saw earlier that I went about 2 or 3 links in. You don't do the very end. You get it as tight as possible to reduce all the slack that you can. The spider bungees will hold them in pretty tight otherwise. Forgot if I said it, but some chains have 3 cams, others have 4, so you just want to make sure you get as many as possible. With these newer lighter weight chains that I have, initially I only had to do 3 out of 4. Now I could do 4 out of 4. And that's all you have to do to put chains on. It's not as difficult as some seem to make it. So here's me showing why you need to back up as far as possible if you're doing a combination of snow socks and tire chains. These have stretched out quite a bit, so they're a lot easier to put on. But you need them at the 2 or 3 o'clock position at the very least once they're worn in, and as much as possible to get as much material onto the other side of the tire as you can so that they don't fall off. And you can see just how easy snow socks are to put on. I've gotten everything put on. Now it's time to drive. As far as lockers, if you're you don't really need the lockers, but because of the snow conditions here, I did the Interaxle lock, which kind of puts it in 4x4 mode. That'll mean 1 tire in the front and 1 in the rear. Drive axles will be guaranteed to get power. Also, when you get ready to drive, put your gloves in the defroster and turn up the heat so that way they can dry a little bit before you have to go take them off. This is another thing I notice with truckers is sometimes they just go too slow. You can go about 30 on chains. With the snow socks, they say 20, but I think you really need to go 30 with them. The momentum really helps, and when you got traction control on your truck, it kind of helps the computer figure things out. Some like to take the traction control off. I prefer to keep it on because I do believe the computers can help figure things out, but sometimes when you really start bogging down, you might need to turn that traction control off to start spinning tires. There's the issues that I ran into on this trip. There was really just 1 or 2 cars stuck, and they were being stubborn and not letting anyone through. And this is the issue. When you feel like you can only do 2 chains, you can if you don't lose any momentum. But sometimes, just like in this situation, it was a good thing that I put 4 on because there was issues, and I had 0 issues getting out and moving when I needed to when I'm on the side of the mountain, while everyone else here is struggling because they had to come to a complete stop. That's really it for my video. This part didn't turn out as what I was hoping for. but this kind of shows you the type of stuff you run into when trying to go up a mountain. You just end up running into a whole bunch of unprepared people doing weird things. This guy flagged me down just to tell me he's gonna back up because he had one set of chains on, didn't want to put two on. And I don't really know what his plan was. I did get out to try to help one of the cars stuck, but once you just freed him up, he would just take up a lane and take up the good lane and then just get stuck again. So if you have a regular car, just make sure you got good tires. Also knowing about your traction control a lot, just don't know about how to turn off traction control to get some of that tire spin when you're from a stop. So here are the culprits. And then the semi truck ahead didn't have tire chains at all, so then he started getting stuck. As you can see here, because I put 4 chains on, it was no issue for me. It was just having to deal with all these other unprepared people. I started hearing air gushing out somewhere, and I think it was the truck ahead of me. I couldn't find anything leaking from my truck. Just some final thoughts. When you have an automatic truck, it's also helpful to get up to a speed where the RPMs will kind of encourage the computer to not downshift or upshift when you need to. Put it in like performance mode, that it reduces the amount that it'll try to shift, and kind of find a speed where you can hover around the 1500 RPM range so it won't downshift or upshift and just try to apply power. And then for when you only have to do 2 chains, I prefer doing the rear drives, not the front. It just seems to me like it's easier to put on, and then also seems to perform better in my opinion. Others don't like doing that because of the mud flaps. But anyways, so that was my video. Hope you enjoyed it, and have a good day.